What's going on, people? It's Mike Weathers here, signing in for our last video discussion board posting. We're going to be talking today about tiny people, little 3-footers, not even pygmies. They were little people from the island of Flores in Indonesia. We're talking about Homo floresiensis. Floresiensis actually is this very, very interesting discovery paleoanthropologically because they are speculated, or actually kind of the theory working here is that they are a direct ancestor to Homo erectus, just like us Homo sapiens. So the working theory here is that Homo erectus, in their travel through from Africa into Southeast Asia, some form of them split off and used this land bridge to get to this little island of Flores. And as they were there, they kind of adapted through evolution into being these smaller beings instead of, so we as Homo sapiens grew into being larger, and we had access to nutrition, we had access to food, we had all of these things, and it was a positive adaptive trait for us to grow into being larger. Whereas for these people on an island where there were relatively limited predators, there was relatively limited resources, there was relatively limited nutrient content, it was an adaptively positive process for them to be getting smaller, so they would require less nutrients. There would be less disturbance in the habitat. There would be more of an advantage to being smaller. So there are so many interesting things about Homo floresiensis, and I think one of the most actually interesting things is that their brain size is really about a third the size of ours. Modern human, Homo sapien, the brain size is roughly around 1450 to 1500 cubic centimeters, and floresiensis actually has one that's closer in size to a chimpanzee's, 450 to 500 cubic centimeters in size. Theirs is a little bit smaller, flatter, a little broader than a modern human's, and so there is some speculation as to whether or not maybe it was just a dysmorphic, one-off situation. There are some other bones that have been found in these caves about that kind of point to this not being the case, have kind of debunked this theory that it was just a body dysmorphia issue or some kind of a plague trait that morphed this body into being something smaller. And so one of the most interesting things when you look at this is this tiny brain produces sophisticated stone tools. There's evidence found of fire and cooking their food. They hunted Komodo dragons, not an actual dragon. They're very large reptile lizards, similar to like a very big monitor lizard that had bacteria in its spit. So almost something you might call poisonous or venomous. Bite from one could most certainly be fatal. If you've got botulism stuck in your blood and there's no modern medicine to be taking care of you, you could seriously die. And so there's evidence that's pointing to, if you think of it critically, them working in groups together to hunt these lizards and to hunt pygmy elephants that were still of substantial size. But they had to be able to communicate with each other for this to be able to be efficient. Any efficient hunting is going to require some means of communication. If it's verbal, nonverbal, whatever it is, they're going to be able to communicate with each other in order to be efficient when they do this. So the locals have talked about even seeing some of these people. If you look at some of the folklore that these Indonesian people have talked about, they talk about the little people that they fear. They would come through and pillage crops. They would come through and they would kill animals. They would take all these things from these villages, and they fear them. And then the local folklore talks about how at some point one of these little people took a baby from the village, and after that, it's kind of a last straw situation. They chased them out, never to be seen again. They did some dating on the bones. Paleoanthropologically, they take a look at how old they were. They were expecting them to be 60, 80,000 years old. Turns out they're only about 18,000. So again, we have evidence of them existing at the same time as Homo sapiens. If you were to consider, actually, this is one of the things they talked about in the video, and I thought this was very, very interesting. if you consider that they may have been the same species, we did some DNA testing on the bones versus modern Homo sapiens, and one of the tests to see if we were a different species is whether or not we'd be compatible for being able to procreate. And after the DNA testing, they were able to prove that they would not have been able to produce new offspring. And thus, again, we're looking at some different species. Everything points to this just being an adaptive ancestor of Homo erectus, just like the Homo sapiens, but, tiny. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful semester this year. It's my last year at community college. I'm wishing you all the best of luck. It's me signing out. I will talk to some of you later. Maybe. Either way, Soli Deo Gloria. You guys take care.